Hi everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations with myself, Simon. Firstly, before I go ahead and share with you what I would like to discuss with you today in this video, I'd like to say thank you so much for choosing to spend, or that you're going to be spending your time in wanting to participate in this video. I'd like to say thank you for choosing your soul empowerment and coming to this channel every single time and using it as an opportunity to empower yourself as we navigate through this matrix of reality that we're all participating in. Okay, so today I feel compelled and really motivated and inspired to share with you a message that I feel carries quite a lot of heaviness to it. It also carries a lot of responsibility to it, but it also at the same time is an empowering message. Okay, and this is quite a lengthy video, so if you have the opportunity to, say for instance, take 45 minutes out of your life to dedicate to listening to what I have to share with you today, that would be really, really great, because I feel like there are quite profound statements that I'm going to make. I don't really feel that they're profound in the sense of profound. I mean in the sense that I'm just going to be bringing awareness to things that I feel are like really, really available to us at this point in time, and sometimes because of it being so intense, we might not necessarily want to pay attention to it as much as we should. And so therefore that's why I say they're kind of profound in that way, because I'm really going to kind of give us the opportunity to pay attention to stuff that as I said are really important. Okay, so what I'm going to be discussing today is the South Node of Neptune in the astrology chart and what that symbolizes for us. I don't think that you're going to find this type of material anywhere else on Cafe Astrology or an Astrodine test and such, because the South Nodes of all the planets themselves are incredibly complex and very abstract pieces of information, because it deals with our collective conscious in a more time-space way. In other words, stuff that has happened to us over our existence over many lifetimes or many years. And if you think of how a candle is created, there's a constant sort of pouring down of wax, and each layer in itself becomes a formation of it. And so the south nodes of all the planets themselves kind of reflect this nature of layering that we have on our consciousness, and it's that layering that we interact with that defines the nature of our reality. So it's a very abstract concept, but hopefully I'll be able to actually ground it in for you today. So I'm going to be speaking about the South Node of Neptune and what it symbolizes, particularly the full moon in Aquarius that we had about a month ago. I'm going to be talking about CERN and the distortions and the deceptions and these end-of-day biblical prophecies. I feel that as I've been sort of ciphering through the internet, observing some of the manifestations that have come up on people's interactions with what's going on, I felt that there's an incredible amount of misinformation, and what I perceive to be misinformation, and also what I perceive to be information that kind of lets us go, what's happening? Oh, this sounds interesting. And then I've also watched other people fiercely defend their statements or perspectives as if it's actually going to be the truth. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit in regards to what's happening in September. Of course, this is what this video is primarily about. And we're going to talk about the law of impermanence, the law of involution and evolution, the law of cause and effect, or karmic return, polarity and deception, as above, so below, the natural law of judgment, which is a Pluto and Capricorn story. And then I'm going to kind of round this video up off just sharing with you my perspective on how to actually keep your vibration very, very high during this period of time, or in fact into your whole entire life, but in a way that really offers deep practical tools. In fact, this is really what I want to use this video for, is for us to come back to the centeredness and to recognize that when we are interacting with all of these different realities, these different ego structures, the different perspectives and so on and so forth, that we come to a realization within ourselves of what is our own, and so that we don't get lost in the vortex of information and swirling the galaxies that are around us, because that's what it is. As much as the cosmos in itself is a reflection of that out there, the law of as above, so below correlates that to any of us. So if there are millions of galaxies out there, then there are millions of people out here that are representing those galaxies. Does that make sense? So you are a galaxy of swirling archetypes, hence the reason why the astrology works. And everything around you is a manifestation of what you put out from the heart chakra. And you are the central sun. Everything swirls around you in that sense. And as you interact with different galaxies, different archetypes come into play. And so that's why you'll look at things like relationship astrology and compatibility, because, of course, when you're blending different types of energy patterns together, they're going to interact and create a new expression of energy. And so that's why you find yourself looking at different types of relationships and compatibilities and such, because you are actually galaxies and we are solar systems interacting with each other consistently. So that's what I want to do in this video today. I'll get straight into it after opening up with what it is that I would like to create as a road that we're going to travel down. In the description below is an article that was actually written based on the inspiration, and so this video kind of interacts with it in that way. I highly recommend reading the actual article itself. I feel that it's got an incredibly high vibration to it, and that it offers very, very grounded and practical tools to make sense of what's going to be happening to us as we move through September 2015 and past that energy band. I'm trying to let everybody know that there's an incredible amount of drama associated with it, and yet, you know, to be quite honest, it's another 2012 experience, or it's another sort of, Neptune moving to Pisces. These are all effects that are going to happen to us, but they're happening in the ether. And it's when we anchor that change into our reality through us being of service to ourselves and our presence here, then do we see the change. So if you're going to see interdimensionally in that way, fantastic. Look at the change. Look at all the light coming out. But if you're not actually anchoring that into your third dimensional body, then it means jack. Okay, and that's why I said this conversation is going to be pretty heavy, because if you're not actually living in accordance with that energy vibration, then this is just going to be metaphysical hoo-ha, which sucks, to be honest. And I'm going to be brutally honest in this video as well, because many of us I'm going to talk about polarity. Many of us are in a situation where we've probably watched Galactic Light Federation videos. We've watched different forms of channeling and so on and so forth. And there's a part of me that feels inside that this is really, really dangerous, because a lot of this information is being presented to us. And yet at the same time, there's this savior external concept and idea of, hey, you just sit back and we'll do everything for you and everything will be okay. And that's not what it's all about. Like, the connection between you and source is strong, and you are the source, and so you manifest through your own beingness. If you ask other people to fix it for you, I'm pausing for a realization to recognize that that's insanity. Like, we are not going to be saved, okay? And this is incredibly important to understand during this period of time. And I'm sorry if I'm going to be fracturing some paradigms here. If you already understand this, thank you so much. But if you're going to actively move through this period of time, you can't be imagining yourself being beamed up into another dimension, or that these imaginable sort of forces are going to intervene with us. We have free will, and we chose to incarnate through this period of time and through this existence of creation. And this is our free will to explore it. If intervention takes place, then we will naturally be off the course of our free will. You're right. That's not how it works. So the point here that I'm trying to make, and a kind of introduction into the south node of Neptune. The south node of Neptune itself situates in Aquarius, in the constellation Aquarius, okay? And the south node of Neptune is between roughly 9 to 15 degrees Aquarius, okay? That's the space of the south node of Neptune, okay? Between 9 and 15 degrees. In every single one of your birth charts, every person alive as it stands today, you will have the south node of Neptune between those places. Now, you can only access this information through programs like SolarFire, which are advanced astrological chart descriptions. You won't be able to do this in AstroDean Test. If you're interested in understanding your South Node stuff, you're more than welcome to contact me for conversations regarding it if you just want to understand that specifically. I do offer those services and do actually give you quite a lot of information about how that operates, and that is my speciality, okay? So contact me and we can set up a meeting with yourself. I'll try and see what type of energy exchange I think is fair in context to the conversation. But anyway, when I say the South Node of Neptune, what I'm actually symbolizing here is not is the information that's there. When we grow up in our lives, we are naturally nurtured by our parents and our environment and such. And so that becomes the basis of our security. This then is reflected through past, okay? And most of the time we're operating from the past, and the process of being in the present moment and accessing those past experiences is how we determine our future. So if we act unconsciously from past life traumas, we'll probably project that into the future. So becoming consciously awake is realizing yourself as this person that's experiencing himself through time space. And you come here to sort of like move through the root chakra and the sacral chakra and basically liberate yourself from the dense material plane, or your karma, as it were. And that's what's happening for us at this stage. We're getting that opportunity to really cleanse that archetypal structure. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that we carry this past with us, and in every single moment we're consistently experiencing the past, and it's what's happened. So the South Node of Neptune reflects to us the past conditionings and past experiences as a collective. In other words, the entirety of our consciousness, and where it has come from, where it has been, what has manifested this reality down now, and how have we influenced that, okay? So the South Node of Neptune situates in Aquarius, and everybody has this. So we're looking at the past, we're looking at the nature of our spiritualization, because it correlates to Neptune, and it correlates to the nature of our collective unconsciousness, okay? Now what we do is we put into the nature of Pisces itself, and through patriarchy, okay, we have, and there's nothing wrong with patriarchy in the sense of it just is, okay? Matriarchy and patriarchy are the same thing in the sense that they reflect polarities, and we're coming to balance the two. So we're taking our connection to nature, matriarchy, and we're taking our patriarchal desire to want to explore technological advancements, and we're kind of culminating it as a balance. Now the problem here that we face at this stage is the ability to recognize that balance needs to come through the fusing of matriarchy and patriarchy consciousness, okay? And that is an incredibly profound thing to do, because if you can do that in your own life, which is going, okay, we've got to live in accordance with nature, because nature provides us with everything that we have, i.e. breath. It's wonderful that we can have all these technological advancements and plan our PlayStations and eat all this wonderful food and parade around with our fantastic cars. And I promise you right now, spend 15 seconds without, or a minute and a half without breath, and tell me how those things get experienced. You understand the importance of connecting with nature and this reality. So what I'm asking you to recognize here is that as we fuse this matriarchy to the technological advancements, what we have as a formation is a balance. We have a hybrid. We have the ability to protect ourselves from nature's harsh experiences, like for instance rain, that tsunamis and not tsunamis, what am I talking about, but any form of rain, okay, any form of wildlife that could be existing that's threatening in some way, shape or form, right? We protect ourselves through building some houses. Now what we could do is we could use that technology to build our houses with solar panels on it, and then we could absorb lots of sun, and then we could find a way to create technological advancements to anchor that energy into it so that everybody has the ability to have energy and not to be taxed. This is idealistic, but it should be reality, because we should be thinking of ourselves as humanity, as one. We're here as a collective race. Why are we divided? There has to be something wrong here. So we're separated. And so this is what Neptune represents. The illusions of separateness that we've experienced and the projections of those separatenesses, okay? So we see our brothers and sisters through our different values and belief systems, and we don't hold space within us to recognize that sense of oneness that we share with them, but also honor our individuality. So we accept it by saying, hey, we're all on a path to experience ourselves in creation, and that we are showing each other what creation looks like in different patterns and different vibrations, just as this picture is showing you in the background. We're all of that beautiful oneness, that yellowness, and yet we're expanding our consciousness through our experiences. Okay? So the South Node of Neptune is a realization that we do carry collective trauma with us, of the rejection and separation of our individuality and our tribes, and the fracturing of light. Okay? Light, the source, is pure magnetic white, okay? It is undistorted, it is pure. And yet when it infiltrates through the dense material plane and through the other energetic centers, it starts to fracture itself. And then eventually what we have is this spectrum of light in fractured aspects. We can call these different belief systems or philosophies or crystallized ideas of ourselves, etc., etc. So, because the South Node of Neptune is an incredibly powerful experience within our collective consciousness, it asks us to recognize, what does it mean when we create unification instead of separation? Well, it recognizes that we understand ourselves as a collective, right? Oneness. We all come from the same space, source. And yet, simultaneously, we're all experiencing a diversity of light all over the place, the spectrum of it. Okay? And if you can find that space within yourself to understand that process, you'll recognize that most of your arguments, most of your feelings of wanting to prove yourself right, etc., etc., dissolve and dissipate, because what you do is you look at another person and you go, hey, I'm human just as you are, and that we have different versions of the same light. What can you show me? When you do that, you open yourself up to the opportunity of not only learning difference or new things, but you also allow other people to be themselves just as you are probably wanting to do yourself. Okay? So the South Node of Neptune plays a really important role in this process, especially because of the full moon that took place just recently, where it landed on that South Node place. And I urge every single one of you to reflect upon that process of how can I find more unification within myself and the acceptance of my fellow man. It doesn't mean that you have to turn around and go, you're like, causing incredible pain to me by, swearing at me or threatening me in some way, shape, or form, going, I accept you. None of that new age nonsense. I mean, in the sense that we develop empathy and passion and compassion through the fact that, unfortunately, through the darkness, through the sort of spiritual winter that we've been experiencing over the last 2,000 years through Pisces, etc., that we are all a product of this fractured light. And that in this fractured light that we are experiencing, most of people's distortions are not actually who they are, but a representation of attachments to these distortions. And that's a very profound thing to see, because when people understand that within themselves and then cleanse that process and kind of clear that nonsense out and repair your DNA structure so that you're operating from a more sort of like loving space. And again, the word loving is unity, it's gratification, it's openness, it's vulnerability, it's joy, it's acceptance, etc., etc. When we operate from that space, we connect to that and we go, okay, let's be from that point of view. But also love ourselves and recognizing that if we're in danger by other people projecting onto us or causing us pain or, not being for our best interests, that we can also put up an energetic wall and say, look, you're not in my life for a reason. You've got your own journey and you still need to work out through some stuff. I've got this journey. We're not helpful in some way, shape, or form. You're helping yourself out in that process, okay? So the South Node of Neptune correlates to the return to our spiritual roots, which is the realization of unity, and through that process, the acceptance of individuality, okay? So I'm going to move over to CERN and the distortions and deceptions, and of course the astrological, the blood moons, the tetrad, and of course we've got other things like the prophecies, etc. Now, biblically speaking, Revelations themselves is correlating to this time right now. When you understand the archetypes of the zodiac itself intimately, you'll recognize that Capricorn is an archetype of crystallization. Okay, everything needs to be crystallized in order for us to see it, otherwise it wouldn't be perceivable. So if you observe, if you just take a look around you right now and you look at the walls around your room, the only reason why you know there's walls is because the light that is bouncing off yourself is reflected off the wall, that then's coming back to you saying, hey, there's a wall there. And we've added a left brain definition to it saying there's a wall there, right? And so we interact with it like that. So Capricorn is that structure that we exist within that allows us to understand light, right? So another example I could maybe use to illustrate that is this glass of water, right? Consciousness can be that water, and the glass can be perceived as Saturn or Capricorn. It's the crystallization. And in the consciousness, or should I say in the glass, is consciousness, and it takes on that form. So the body can be seen as the glass, and your consciousness or awakenedness in that sense, or awareness, is that water. So Pluto moving through Capricorn is influencing this deep fracturing, breaking down, destruction, ending of, the structures is falling apart and going, this is crystallized and outdated. Everything that has been formed over the last 256 years as Pluto's gone through its cycle is now coming to a point where it's going, the time that you were in there and the time we're living in now are diverse and different. And so therefore, when you are taking fragments of light here and you're taking fragments of light here and they're interacting with each other, they're naturally going to miss each other or not be in alignment with each other. This can be perceived as the generation of people that are interacting with the systems right now. Okay? And the people that created the systems then, they're out of date. It's like it's like Windows, for instance, updating their software. Right? At some point, most of the software from Windows 5, 3.1 won't work on Windows 7. It's just impossible unless you configure it away. But the point is that the cup that holds the software itself has changed. And so Pluto moving through Capricorn, especially since 2008, has been going, okay, it's time to reconstruct your reality, i.e. the construction that you use to see yourself through that light. Now, imagine what happens when something deconstructs itself and light is just emanating from it without any opportunity to see itself. It's pure darkness. So these representations of this darkness, the sense of light not existing, etc., is a symbolic representation of the fact that where our structures are dissolving, in order for us to then, from that destruction or that destruction dissolving, emanate and vibrate and create a new structure in order for us to perceive ourselves in. Okay? So it's a natural law. Okay, when something dissolves itself, nothing's going to contain it in order for us to see that light. So it's coming back up again, and this is where we are, right in the beginning. And you can think about this, like what type of thought processes and psychological behaviors and perceptions and belief structures, etc., manifest from this process, right? If there's nothing there, everybody's going to try and grab onto some form of information and go, okay, this is what's happening, that's what's happening, that's what's happening. And to a certain degree, we need to do that because most of us have been, or in fact all of us, myself included, have been in some way, shape or form programmed to exist within the root chakra, which means that our security is of the utmost. And if my security has been threatened in some way, shape or form, then I'm going to start to obviously develop these insecurities, these anxieties, etc. And what happens to us is that we start to space out into unimaginable scenarios and circumstances. And we probably also carry past lives with us, or lives with us, of events that have had this kind of Scorpio essence to it, where everything's just taken away from us in an instant, so we freak out. So there is mass insanity that can absolutely occur, and this is something that's really important to recognize, is that in these moments of darkness or non-reflective light, we're going to lose the plot a little bit and hang on to things because of our natural need to create security, which is why you'll notice that an incredible amount of teachers or people that have tried to express pure organic light, not false deception, have explained that there is a necessity to create inner security and to develop within yourself the ability to know what you need to know when you need to know it. And as we transition through this moment of darkness, the opportunity to take your life and creation into your own hands and go, okay, I've got a blank canvas. It's never been described before. It's never been discussed before. Why not just throw my stuff on it and see what happens? I.e., take the opportunity to create potential where there is potential and see what happens. to create new thought forms, etc., etc. These are the type of attitudes that are necessary to then, from that point of view, start acting in alignment with, or creating a behavior within your life that experiments with stuff, try new things out, and also allow yourself to not feel judged based on right or wrong, because there isn't any. It just is. And that's the archetype of beingness. Okay? So the nature of these biblical prophecies, etc., are implying to us that there is a massive shift and changing that is taking place, but shouldn't be taken literally. This is such an important process over here. Yes, there is a massive radical shift within the nature of consciousness, of changing the paradigms in which we're existing within. And these paradigms, of course, are leaving us in new uncharted territories of trying to grab onto what is real and what isn't real, etc., etc. And this can be incredibly abstract. But when you expand your consciousness or mind awareness to the point of what is really there, you'll recognize that this actually makes quite a lot of sense. That with Saturn currently at the moment at 28 degrees Scorpio, the nodal axis, i.e. the nodes of the moon, south node, north node of the moon, the way that we consciously make choices to integrate new realities, that's situated at 0 degrees, Libra, Aries, okay? Pluto has moved up to 15 degrees, which is halfway through the sign, implying that we're so far away from what we knew, and we're so far away from the end, that we're stuck in the middle. And we're going, okay, where do we go? So it's so easy to be lost because it's on both ends of the scale, the distance is so far. Now, Pluto's moved retrograde, implying that we have gone back on any of the sort of undercurrent things that we haven't looked at properly, etc., etc. And this is what we've been experiencing over the last 4 months, has this internal destruction that's taking place in order for us to then, from September onwards, as the nodes change into Virgo, Pisces, Jupiter's transit through Virgo starts to kick in, and Pluto moves direct, Saturn moves into Sagittarius, that there's an entirely new paradigm for us available, and that we're going to be rebirthed into this new process. Well, consciousness has the potential for rebirth if we act upon that idea, and then so hence this conversation. Okay, so all of these sort of these expressions of change and opening portals and all of this type of stuff that you see out there are all manifestations of the same thing, which is we're going through a destruction process. We're going through going very in deep within our own collective psychology and psyche and consciousness to the point where it's very, very far away from anything that represents light and knowingness. And in that process, we can be incredibly lost. And so let's hold on to stuff and let's imagine some stuff. I mean, I've been reading on the internet that people say that from September onwards, we're going to be able to have this ability to levitate. And a part of this video is to say, okay, I'm going to be open-minded about this process, and I'm really intrigued to see this. But there is also a very massive potential for danger here of people actually gullibly believing in this process and then getting disillusioned in it, and then going off to the other side of the story and going, there's absolutely no such thing as this astrological change. So if you are putting out information out there, if you are speaking in some way, shape or form, please recognize that you will have an effect on other people, and it's incredibly necessary to have responsibility when you're sharing this information. Okay, at least try to be sort of practical about it or grounded about it in a way of going, okay, there's this tons of information, I'm open to these things, but I'm not going to be like, yep, that's how it is. I'm just going to be open to what can be there. And really ask yourself, what is the underlying reality for my search in this process? What am I trying to figure out here? What am I trying to understand? Is it because I fear not knowing what's going on, so therefore I'm going to watch a bunch of fear-based propaganda videos that are going to tell me with dramatic music that the world's going to end and this is going to die and this, and it's like, it just gets so sickening. It really does. So what am I looking for? Am I looking for fear porn? Am I looking for fear propaganda, where I just allow myself to be entertained versus the actual essence of what's going on here? That internally within yourself, there is a massive shift in the collective consciousness as well as the cosmic karma that you all have. And that the judgment day, as it were, is the realization within yourself of all of your actions that have led you to this point. Okay, so here's the 3 laws that I would like to share with you. And the reason why I'm telling you these 3 laws is because as you move through this time-space reality right now, and you move increasingly through the plethora of information that is available to us, recognize that a lot of it is going to pull you away and existentialize your consciousness, and a lot of it is going to distract you from the actual truth. Now, nature in itself is our best teacher because it shows us everything that we need to know without any belief system. You know, you don't need to go and convince and convert somebody of something over there. Nature just shows it to you. It's inherent. So we go with natural law. Align yourself with natural law, okay? It's incredibly important to understand the difference between natural law and man-made law. Man-made law is our self-imposed ideas about how things should operate versus the laws that exist in the principles of this universe that affect everybody and you cannot escape it. For instance, the law of impermanence and liberation. The law of impermanence and liberation teaches us this, that as we go through the cycle, we are consistently interacting with the nature of loss, abandonment, and endings, okay? Scorpio. And that what it teaches us is that as much as we can build these monolithic structures and these wonderful, amazing things, at some point things end and change. And that nothing lasts forever apart from consciousness or energy. So it changes form. And that kind of liberates us in a way, because on one hand, when we're so fixated onto something, we need a kind of shock to let us out of that process. Okay? There's also the law of impermanence that teaches us that when through loss, we come to deepen our sense of awareness to creation, because it teaches us empathy and compassion and love. Because as you understand through your own changing and your own loss, that a deeper sense of meaning emerges from this process. So the law of impermanence is existing wherever we go. And we have to recognize at any point in time it could strike in our lives. Death could happen. So value your life. Value the sacredness that it is, this presence over here. And don't find yourself distracting and going off into tangents about the nature of what you think reality is. And finding yourself at the end going, I just missed it all out. Or I haven't valued the true important things that bring me joy and acceptance and love in my life. Okay? The law of involution and evolution. This is a cyclic pattern, and it teaches us that we have breath, okay? So we have exhale, and we have inhale. And what this teaches us is this motion of polarity, right? Okay? And polarity then teaches us the ability to objectify the nature of our consciousness, and this is what it means to be a creator of your own reality. You exhale what is in, and you receive what is on the external. So you exhale your reality by expressing yourself like I've done today. And then what will happen is that you'll observe this, and then your interaction back at me will reveal to me how this experience has happened. And so therefore I see myself through myself as myself, right? The law of evolution shows you that we express ourselves, evolution, and then the process of law of impermanence comes in and says, okay, now it's time to go back to the center. And so we return back to the center, and that's where the deconstruction process takes place. And we return back to nothingness. And that's when we go into the darkness, and that's when we come into the light again. The yuga cycles as well, the sine waves, etc. Right? So yin energy, yang energy. And it teaches us that natural cyclical process, okay? From one side to the other one, from one side to the other. So with the law of impermanence and the law of evolution, we get to recognize that we express, create, manifest, and then it comes back down to the same place again. We express, create, manifest, learn, understand, be humble, come back down to the center again. Okay? And so we're in a process of expansion, and now we're in a process of kind of like contraction a little bit. We're contracting a little bit. We're understanding ourselves on a deeper level. We're coming back to our center again, reflected through Neptune and Pisces. Okay? The law of cause and effect is incredibly important to recognize as well, or the karmic returns, because as much as we would like to blame other people or other circumstances and situations for our own well-being, we have become incredibly complacent through our spiritual ignorance. And again, I want you to know that this is not a judgment on you, because I'm part of you and I'm part of this experience, and I'm also looking at my own cause and effect situation here. But everything that we have on the planet today, everything that we interact with in some way, shape, or form is from our own doing as well. So within inside of ourselves, wherever we are promoting materialism, recognize that we are supporting that system. So we cannot turn around and say, this is incredibly wrong, etc., and then for us to feed that system. Okay? So as you move through this time-space reality, it's incredibly important to recognize that you are going to be dealing with the ramifications of your karma. It will be coming back to you through the laws of evolution. It's going to come back Whatever you expressed is going to come back to you. And how you deal with that is your judgment. The judgment day is not an external savior that's going to come out there out of the clouds and go, we have done this thing wrong, etc., etc. There is second returning of Christ and all that type of nonsense. That is a deception. That is false light. The judgment is the realization of your own actions and how you've contributed to the overall sort of imbalance that has happened on the planet, and how you can find equilibrium within yourself, how you can come back to the center within yourself. Okay? So, polarity and deception. This is incredibly important because you have to recognize that as we move along this Earth timeline, we do have mass amounts of distraction. Okay, from iPads to television screens to, I mean, just look at the television screens that are coming out today. The high volume digital experience is mad. It's incredibly mad how attractive these things are. And wherever you go, you just see these screens just everywhere, just consistent screens, taking your consciousness away from the centerness of your beingness and objectifying it into something else so that you watch those other things. Now, you're doing it with your phone right now. You're watching this with right now. And so what I would like to say to you is that there is a polarity here. If you're going to be interacting with the distraction, allow yourself to be centered in the realization that you need to be doing it for self-improvement and soul-empowering ways to make your life better. Do not use it to space out consistently and distract yourself from your pain. It can be so easy to find yourself just surfing the internet for hours and hours and hours and not actually confronting maybe something within yourself. I'm not standing up being a parent. What I am asking for us is to hold space within ourselves, that it's so easy to get distracted with all this technological advancement that it can actually consume us, and we forget about the true importance of what it is that we're trying to do with ourselves here. And that is realize that we're trying to awaken our spiritual beingness and be more present in our lives. Being more present in our lives is taking all of the distortions that exist within us and cleansing it so that when we operate in our lives, we bring more of ourselves out. And that's what it means to shine your light. The polarity over here is to recognize that you are a creator and you've come here to understand your light through your light. So whatever you manifest around you is a representation of what exists within, as above, so below. Now, the deception at this point in time is incredibly insane because at the moment there's so much disinformation that basically misdirects us and pushes us in different directions and tells us to objectify our realities and then completely disconnect from the pain, and twin flames and this Hollywood nonsense and stuff like that. Twin flames exist, absolutely. But I promise you right now that the degree of awareness that you need to have to anchor a twin flame relationship is mental. Because it's not this like wonderful sort of love, happiness, Valentine's Day nonsense. It's got nothing to do with that at all. It's actually about anchoring full dimensional Kundalini flame energy into your life and into your existence in every moment, and then merging it with one person like that and creating a constant flow of energy as you ascend. It's about cleansing and clearing, and it's about operating through authentic truth. And most of us, unfortunately, have not been able to have enough teachings around us to know how that process works, which means that when you do experience that, there's going to be a massive clashing of deceptions and distortions and egos, allowing you to completely frazzle out and burn out. And then at some point, probably not even ever want a relationship. So if you're finding yourself reading up on twin flames, I highly recommend making sure that it's not invested in this one devotional love process, but the actual deconstruction of distorted egos and materialism and the ascension of one's own spiritual being through the awakening of the Kundalini. And all the teachings that are necessary for that. Your life needs to be invested in understanding Gnostic teachings or esoteric schools of thought so that you can understand what the deeper, more metaphysical aspects that are allowed here. Because the moment that you start opening up your pineal gland and so on and so forth, and you haven't done the necessary alignment with the heart and the pineal gland, you are literally opening yourself up to fourth dimensional entities to take over your consciousness and speak from pure deception. And this is where there's a difference between New Age channelers. Most channelers need to have an ability to understand that they're operating from the heart. So if you're channeling from the space of knowingness, there is probably going to be some form of deception being projected through you because you're not in alignment with the heart, which comes through many lifetimes of experiencing the law of impermanence and involution, evolution, and cause and effect, because you're humbled by the process and realize that humanity is about opening up to the sensitivities of incredible compassion, incredible opportunity to realize how much we have become so desensitized through distractions, through false light. So much misdirection, so much energy just saying, hey, look at this thing over here while we create this thing here. Hey, look at this over here. Instead of paying attention to your own beingness and your own centeredness and your own allowingness to actually be in nature and to feel your karma and to feel your nature and to be on that level, you're externalizing your consciousness to somebody else telling you how it is. Which in this conversation, I'm sharing with you right now, but I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm asking you to pay attention to what is important so that if you are on a path of raising your frequency, these are the things that you need to be paying attention to and integrating it into your life. And you do that by understanding the nature of polarity, that everybody and everything comes into your field to show you something about yourself, and that's where unification takes place, right? So you're healing duality. And duality is understanding another person's perspective and then arguing with them and trying to convince them that your perspective is better than theirs. Versus just going, that's what you've experienced in your life. That's your own personal journey. Those are the shoes that you've walked in. These are mine. And connect with other people's pain that they've gone through and the loss that they've gone through so that you can have an empathy connection and an ability to have the water or emotions be present within you. Again, I talk about this false light story. There is an incredible amount of false light coming through at this stage. False light is literally information that misdirects you from your own beingness, of your own centeredness and your own sense of self-empowered state of being. How can you empower yourself in every single moment? How are you present within yourself to say, am I empowered in this moment or am I disempowered? Whatever circumstances and situations are around you, ask yourself, can I empower myself in this moment? And what is that to me? It all becomes with the ability to empower yourself. When you empower yourself and you create a platform around you, then you can help others. But you first have to help yourself. So it's really important to recognize that false teachers, false prophets, etc., will represent themselves at the stage, and it will all be about the externalization of your consciousness. This is what it's about. I talk about this in my astrology videos by saying to you that as we go on a path of self-discovery, we naturally need to go through these false prophets in order for us to discover ourselves, because you need to understand through the law of polarity what is not you and what is you. So these things are natural. I'm not discrediting it. What I am saying is that when you've come to that realization, you'll become aware of the deception that's around you in a very big way. And that is the process of now needing to discern, okay? And discrimination. It is not about judging other people and ourselves and saying, look, that's absolute nonsense. Just go, okay, obviously this person's still trying to understand the nature of source and what it symbolizes. I've managed to find some form of realization with that, so I'm going to share that in a way. But I'm not going to criticize and judge. It's so important to realize that we're aiding people and becoming more awake as you are awake yourself. You do that from your heart. You don't want to cause more trauma. You don't want to cause more judgment. You don't want to cause more pain on it, but you can offer a sense of awareness in that process. And just little things like that are you transmute vibrations of negative energy into positive, uplifting energy. Okay? Really important to recognize. Self-empowerment. How can you empower yourself in the moment? False light. What it does is it fractures your ability to know what's right or wrong. It fractures your ability to discern between what is yours and what is others. And so many different opinions and ideas and perspectives floating around at this point in time and going like, what is mine? And you ask yourself that question, how is it empowering me? How is it serving my spiritual empowerment? And what does it mean for me practically? How can I find practical tools within this process? If it gives you that opportunity, fantastic. If it's not, then it should be disregarded as said, that's not for me. And you move along just feeling your way through things and going, not for me, etc., etc. And you'll find yourself actually being really, really comfortable navigating through this process. Okay? All right, guys, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to do this video with you. As I said, I know it must have been a lengthy conversation. The article is in the description below. I highly recommend reading it because a lot of it's also containing stuff that I might have not said here. I really just wanted to open up this conversation and give us the opportunity to really ground ourselves in realizing that as we move past September, it's about a significant change in our awareness. And that for a period of time, spend as much time in nature, spend as much time representing and being solidified in your own consciousness, clear all the distortions, clear all the hierarchy that exists within you, the as above, so below. Look at the systems that we have around us. The governments do to us as what we do to animals. You understand this, right? So we harvest or we farm animals and we eat animals for energy so that we can sustain our slave work. And that slave work is then projected onto us by our governments that control us and oppress us through the monetary system and the debt, etc. So we contribute. It's as above, so below. What they do to us is what we do to the animal kingdom. It's literally that simple. So what I'm asking you in my heart is to recognize this hierarchical structure and to break it by stepping out of that hierarchical structure and saying, okay, I'm going to try to be less or more conscious of maybe not eating animal foods or animal products whatsoever, removing dairy from that product completely, allowing yourself to eat more plant-based food experiences, and to actually challenge yourself in that process and give yourself the opportunity to be less interactive with the hierarchical structures and the as above, so below things, and grow your own food. Learn something new, for instance, that offers you the opportunity for self-empowerment. Take a course that gives you the opportunity to help humanity, and really, really pay attention to realizing that the way that this change is going to happen on our planet is not from us just sitting around doing nothing and pretending some imaginary freaking consciousness is going to come into our light frame and give us these that's going to change it for us. We are the change. It's up to us to raise our frequency and expand the flower of consciousness that exists behind us. We are the ones that need to anchor that change into the world by being a representation of this new shifted change. So as long as we sit passively going, okay, thank you very much, external savior, when it comes my way, it's not going to happen. We're just going to be more locked into the New World Order nonsense. Thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to rant with you in that same. I really hope that you enjoyed this. Please feel free to write comments below. I'd like to have an interaction with you. And if you're interested in understanding more about what I do, please check out my website. The descriptions and writings are all in there for you, okay? Have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.